Hello, everybody. Hello, friends. This is the last chapter in part 3 of the Bhagavatam. And this is the end of the story of Kapila and Devahuti and the end of their conversation. And it's a very interesting chapter. Hi, Mariana. I like to see how it's kind of like where are they now? What happened to them after this famous thing? After this big event, what happened? Or what next kind of thing? So it's actually really interesting. So let's jump into it. Devahuti, the mother of Kapila and darling of Kardama, Kardama's her husband, understood the words of her son. She understood everything that he taught her. Understood the words of her son, who composes the definition of reality. He's famous as the great scientist who composed the definition of reality, and who is the very foundation of all accomplishments. Interesting concept there. Kapil was satisfied to see that the veil of her confusion had been lifted. So he's very happy that she understood everything he said, because that was his intention. And then she gives a closing statement. So there still is like a closing conversation here. She gratefully said, okay, this is great. She gratefully said, the elements, senses, objects, and mind of your body are the inexhaustible seed of all reality. So this is a question. Remember yesterday we were talking about how consciousness will produce forms. It will produce forms. The form can be produced through ignorance of what it is or through comprehension of what it is. Form is not a trademark of ignorance. Ignorance is a trademark of ignorance. Separatism is a trademark of ignorance. So it's very interesting. She says, your form is the substance of consciousness itself. The elements, senses, so the substance of consciousness itself also has elements, senses, objects, and mind, etc. The elements, senses, objects, and minds of your body are the inexhaustible seed of all reality. How could such a body have been produced from mine? How could you have been born from my belly when everyone is born from the lotus of your belly? Even unborn Brahma, who meditates on you and seeks you out when you lay within the water. Hello, everybody. The entire universe exists within your belly, so how could you become a helpless child within mine? So she's asking these rhetorical questions about how amazing it is that Kapila is her child. Since Kapila is Vishnu, the origin of everything, how could she be the origin of him? You are the exclusive master of thousands of inscrutable potencies. With a mere fragment of your external potency, you effortlessly and infallibly create and maintain this entire universe. How could you have been created from my womb, and how could I have maintained you as my child? Now she gives her answer. You became my son because it pleases you. Just as it pleases you to become a simple baby sucking your toes while lying on a banyan leaf at the end of a universal aeon. You took birth in this world because you want to increase your ever-increasing bliss by easing our suffering, guiding us to the true happiness of devotion. You descended into this world as the boar and others, including this form as my son, just to help people recognize the path towards their own true selves. So, you're the origin of everything. How could I be the origin of you? You're the mother of everyone. How could I be the mother of you? Because you like it. Because you want it. And you even have a purpose for it. Imagine a house. Imagine you build a house. You build a doorway. Then you walk through the doorway. So the origin point of your existence in the house becomes the doorway. Right? You walk into the house through the door. That means you originate into the house through the door. Your origin to the house is the door. But you built the door. So you're the origin of the door. That's how it is. Vishnu, Param Brahman, Param Atma, Bhagavan manifests many things, and then he can manifest through those things. Even a barbaric dog eater is a certain kind of saying. Vedic people, they certainly didn't eat meat, and they certainly didn't. I mean, actually, sometimes some of them did eat meat, but they certainly didn't eat carnivorous meat. It's quite barbaric to eat carnivorous meat. Even a barbaric dog eater can immediately be pure enough to participate in the Soma ritual if he just occasionally remembers you. Even a barbaric dog eater, so like even the person who's really gross, really blunt and really gross, can immediately be pure enough to participate in the Soma ritual. It's the most complex ritual, and it's the most exacting ritual. If he just occasionally remembers you by hearing your name and glorifying it with respect. The respect part is the part that you can't imitate. So how can anyone describe the good fortune of those like me who meet you in person? Even people who just occasionally have respect for a concept of you or your name or something, they become quite purified. So what is the fortune of someone like me? You came from my belly. You came from my womb. You're my son. I have such contact with you. Oh, it's amazing. If your precious name comes even to the tip of anyone's tongue, even a barbaric dog eater, that person becomes the most respectable guru. Those who embrace your beloved name have successfully completed all self-disciplines, sacrificial rituals, sacred baths, and studies of divine wisdom. They have surpassed all the evolutions available even in the most advanced human culture. Kapila would say, my name? What you're saying is true of Vishnu, but I'm just your son. So Devahuti said, I know that you, Kapila, are the worshipable Vishnu, the mother of the Vedas, the supreme spiritual substance, and the supreme being controlling everything. How can you know this? Kapila asks. How can you perceive me so clearly and truly? Devahuti answers, I can perceive you truly because I have lost all interest in external perception and have saturated my senses with pure devotion. How did you lose all interest in external perception? And she says, the first hint of your beauty annihilated all my interest in exploring the beauty of the external world, she exclaimed in a beautiful voice full of tears. Mother, he said, his own voice choked with love for her, the path of devotion that I told you about is very pleasant. Follow it firmly and you will quickly attain the supreme goal. Have faith in my opinion about this, for the spiritualists who follow this pleasant path attain me without difficulty or fear, and those who do not follow it achieve only mortality. After giving all this, so basically what Devahuti did is, whether intentionally or not, what she did is confirm that she understood everything that he taught. And then at the end he said, this is great, you really understand it, now practice it, which is very interesting because compared to you and I, Devahuti is like, even at this point in the story, even at any point in the story, is like immeasurably more progressed along the spiritual path. But you always need more until you're actually there, until you're actually situated in your true form, your permanent true form. So he says, He advises even her, practice it. And remember, he previously told her to teach it. Listen, at the end of the previous chapter, he said, I need you to teach this to other people. So practice it and teach it. After giving all this enlightenment to his qualified mother, empowering her to attain her true self, the all-attractive Kapila took permission from that spiritualist and departed. Now, this is interesting. Now, it's going to be about after Kapila left and after she received all this knowledge from him. What did she do? How did she practice it? In the ashram that was like a flower crown. Hang on a second. In the ashram that was like a flower crown on the Saraswati River, she engaged in the yoga she had learned from her son and attained perfect samadhi. That residence expanded from the mystic power of forefather Kardama's yogic discipline, contained an incalculably valuable flying palace. Remember that one? It's still there. Beds of ivory looked like foamy warm milk under golden canopies. Golden couches were adorned with luxuriant cushions. Resplendent walls were made of marble and fine emerald, with lamps of brilliant jewels. Even the maids were adorned in valuable jewelry. In the courtyard, ever-flowering trees produced delightful blossoms and fruits while lovebirds sang, and delighted bumblebees buzzed. Accomplished musicians used to sing when she and Kardama entered those courtyards and embraced near the ponds, full of fragrant lotuses. Devahuti renounced all these treasures, which even the women of paradise would envy. She didn't go in that palace after her son left. She had no interest in it. Without being able to embrace her son, she felt troubled and looked sad. Her husband had departed to dwell in the forest, and now she was bereft of her son too. Although full of spiritual knowledge, she felt like an affectionate cow who had lost her calf. As soon as her son Kapila left, she became completely uninterested in even seeing the pleasures of her home. She simply wanted to meditate as he has instructed her. She meditated upon the beauty of the all-attractive as a whole and in his individual parts, just as her son had taught her, with a happy smile on his face. The current of her bhakti yoga automatically produced very strong disinterest in external objects, very perfect attention to detail in her pious activities, and very broad realization of reality. Purified by fixing her heart upon the true soul of all, she realized her true self. All perception of the myriad qualities of the external world vanished from her. With all her focus fixed in spirit, she dedicated her entire being to the all-attractive, and thus began to live an exalted life where suffering recedes and effortless happiness approaches. She was constantly in an awakened spiritual trance and could not be overtaken by the confusing qualities of temporal existence. She could not even recall a sense of identity to her former self, which seemed just like a dream she was awakening from. Her curly hair became gray and matted from her serious austerity and frequent bathing. Her neglected clothing became worn out and ragged. Nonetheless, her devoted maids cared for her body, and her mind was free from anxiety, so she did not become thin, despite paying no attention to her body. Covered in rags and dust, her body looked like a beautiful flame, surrounded by thickening smoke. Absorbed in her austerity and yoga, she cared not for her own body, knowing that it would be maintained by its own fate. Her hair was often disheveled and her clothes worn incorrectly. All her thoughts were enwrapped in Krishna, the son of Vasudeva. By thus following the path defined by Kapila, she very quickly attained cessation of material existence, realization of the absolute spiritual substance, cognition of the supreme soul, and the direct association of the all-attractive. Sequentially. The place where she finally left her body altogether and achieved the supreme perfection is the most sacred place known throughout the three worlds as Siddhapadam, the place of perfection. Her mortal shell became immortal due to the purity of her spiritual link, and it became the very best of all rivers, which grants all the perfections desired by the pure devotees, which would probably be Saraswati, I believe. Now, that's the end of the really fantastic description of Devahuti. What she did, how she acted, what she realized, what became of her. Now Kapila. So we rewind the story back to when all-attractive Kapila, the great yogi, had begged his mother's permission to leave his father's ashram. He went towards the north. So what happened when Kapila left? Where did he go? He went towards the north until he encountered the Ganges River, which he followed to the east. Ganges flows east-west. When he arrived at the ocean, the waters gave way. Very interesting. And created a residence for him. So the waters made a tunnel for him to go down into the Indian Ocean. And he made a residence at the bottom of the ocean. There, the scientists, singers, musicians, and dancers of paradise glorify him. He exists there still, fixed in the samadhi of yoga and glorified by the acharyas of his spiritual science to bring peace to the three worlds. So, according to this, there's somewhere at the bottom of the Indian Ocean where there's a bubble of some dimensions, I don't know, some modest size, which is Kapila's ashram, where he still is meditating to this day. This ends the pure tale of the conversation between Kapila and Devahuti. Whoever listens to or explains these instructions of the scholar Kapila whoever listens to or explains these instructions of the scholar Kapila, which reveal the mysteries of self-realization, will fix all his or her thoughts on realization of the lotus feet of the all-attractive who rides atop the eagle. That is the end of the entire third division. Which I finished translating 5 years ago. 5.5 years ago. There's been a bit of a break. So let's see, you have any questions here? Let me know if you have any questions. Did Devahuti chant Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya? It wasn't mentioned, was it? So I wouldn't know. Kapila says that this should not be recited to wrongdoers, cruel people. What about people who are in gray areas? He didn't say it shouldn't be recited to them. He said don't teach them. You got to remember, there's no YouTube in Kapila's ashram. So Devahuti can't just put a phone up on a stand and talk and reach however many people happen to want to tune in. Like, if you guys, how many people are here? 35. Well, it makes no difference to me if there's 35, 350, or 3. It takes the same amount of time and the same amount of effort for me. So it's very different than in the old days. And also, you might think that I'm teaching you, but really I'm just reading something to you and talking about it a little bit. It's not like really, really carefully teaching any particular individual. So what he's talking about is, first of all, in his day and age, each and every student required direct contact. And so you would waste your time and energy. by teaching people that weren't going to be able to learn what you're talking about. I don't waste any time and energy if somebody pops onto the stream and is like, what is this? And they pop off, but that doesn't waste any of my energy. So in that old days, you would really be careful not to waste your time and energy. So there's certain people that are not going to understand this. They're not qualified to understand this topic. People that are cruel by their nature, people that are hateful, are not going to understand anything about this. They're not going to practice it. They're not going to be affected by it. So don't waste your time with it. So it doesn't. I don't know. So see if you have a new question that pops up after I mention that. Thank you, Lakshmi. Thank you. How do I say that name? Lichtblauschurz. We'll call you K, because my German type languages are definitely not as good as my Indian type languages. Bardo asks, if it listened, does it mean we will never be able to forget about it? It depends on if you listened or not. To be frank, a lot of you don't listen at all. This is why I always harp on this. Like, most people don't listen to anything. Even if sound is bouncing off their eardrums, they're not listening. They're listening to their own thoughts or something. But if you actually listened and you heard anything, then you have got your anchor in mukti. And as to when, like, when you build a train track, you build something, you make an end station. You got the connection to the end station if you've heard any bit of this Bhagavatam. If you've heard it, if you cognized it, if it makes sense to you, then as to when you will actually get to that station, we don't know that. But you do have the station and you can get there. Yeah, I guess I'm teaching, but it's not like it's like 1 hour a day. A teacher in Kapila's time would live with you and teach you the yoga, and a student would not be like a hobbyist who's kind of interested in it. They would be practicing it. That's what he's talking about here when he's talking about the requirements for teaching and studying. Fabrizio, he wants to know when this fourth canto published. What we're going to do now, starting tomorrow, is open up the fourth canto. If I remember right, I have about 80% of it done. And so as I read you from that, I'll be simultaneously doing a final edit on it. And I think I'll publish it in segments. So as we're going through segments, I'll publish. It's very easy to publish a book on the Amazon these days. So as we finish certain milestones, maybe 2 or 3, maybe 4 milestones in the book, I'll publish that section. Miss Vinay, how did it affect others that Devahuti was still physically around? Did her love for Vishnu radiate all around her the way people say meditation positively affects others? Yes, she was the acharya. People don't realize this, especially misogynists don't realize how many female acharyas there are in the Vedic tradition. She's actually the acharya of the Sankhya school, not the founding one. The founder is Kapila, but she's the first teacher of Kapila's thing. So she had students, but as you could see, at a certain point in her progress, she becomes oblivious to the external world. So that's going to include being oblivious to students. But at that point, students can learn simply by proximity and observation and absorbing of her emotions through theirs. But yes, she is the one who taught other people what Kapila. Kapila went into the ocean. People, they don't even know where he is. So Kapila is not the one who spread Sankhya all around. Devahuti is the one who told other people about the conversation that she had with her son. And thus we have a recording of it to this day. So yeah, for some time that was going on. Remember, this takes this short bit of short paragraphs covers the graying of her hair. So it must have covered a decade or two of time. At least, right? Who knows what her lifespan is and how long it takes her hair to gray. So it covers many, many years in a short amount of time. Samantha, thank you. Bardo, it means everything. Hatel, it's always fun to know that you're listening. Mary, yeah, it's very nice to replay it. Thank you. Anil, that's very adorable. Thank you so much, Tiffany. What exactly are you meditating on when you practice bhakti? You listen, the Bhagavatam is going to talk about that again and again and again. Go back 2 or 3. Just go and review the Kapila's description with his mother that we just finished. He's explaining that in great detail. What if one turns rogue after listening to learning it? Arjuna asked that question to Krishna at the end of the 6th chapter of the Gita. And Krishna says, Krishna says the progress towards a real goal never becomes unreal. The progress towards a fake goal never becomes real, and the progress towards a real goal never becomes unreal. And any progress that you make is permanent. You may stop making progress, or you may lose the progress that you imagine that you have. And so many times we imagine that we're so advanced in our spirituality and our yoga is so profound and our understandings are so complete. It's all a bunch of imagination. So you may actually make progress by busting those illusions and imaginations. But the true progress that you make in any yoga towards mukti or liberation of any form is not lost. It might be put on the back burner or be ignored for several lifetimes, but it's never lost. Thank you very much, Bardo, as always. That's very interesting. Why do some scriptures say that Kapila's first student is Asuri? I'll look that up. And then I'll let you know. Anyway, I felt Kapila's teachings are so heart-touching and clear. Yes. Melissa, thank you. Thank you very much, everybody. All right, so I guess that's it. Then we'll call it a day. Wow, that's the end of the 3rd canto. That is a big canto, isn't it? 33 chapters. Okay, so join me tomorrow to crack open the 4th canto and see where it's going to go. What's going to happen after this conversation. Anil wants to know if this means that we're learning about Bhagavatam for the first time. No, not necessarily. But you're probably learning new things now from it. All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate everybody's company here. I'll see you tomorrow.